All right. Well, my name is Maggie Rose, and I serve as the Assistant Director of Admissions at Vanderbilt School of Medicine. I joined the team in early February, and before this, I served as the Program Coordinator for Anesthesia Studies at Ohio Dominican University in Columbus, Ohio. I've always been in higher ed, but my previous role was kind of my first taste of medical graduate education. And I knew that that was the student population that I wanted to work with for the rest of my career. You are all highly motivated, you're driven, you're curious, and just very enthusiastic about the field of medicine. And it makes it very fun to come to work every day. In my role here at Vanderbilt, I work across all aspects of admissions from the beginning of an applicant's journey all the way to their white coat ceremony. And I will pass it over to Gracie.
Hello, everyone. So good to be here today. I am Gracie. I'm the admissions counselor here at Vanderbilt School of Medicine. I am in charge of yielding all you wonderful students here to Vanderbilt. I a big part of my role is doing these types of information sessions and going to health fairs and um, conferences. So I started this job in June. So I'm still learning a lot. And yeah, it's been super interesting to be in the healthcare side of things. I was a sports communication major in college, so this was definitely not what I saw myself doing, but it has been super fun and very interesting, and I love working with pre-med students. Yeah.
Perfect. Next slide.
Sorry, Maggie, I don't know why it goes so slow every time I click the next slide.
All good. All good.
Okay.
So, whenever we are talking to pre med students, we love to show pictures from our white coat ceremony. And the white coat ceremony is a powerful milestone in every med student's journey. Here at Vanderbilt, our students receive their white coats during their first month of orientation, officially marking their entrance into the profession. And we understand that the journey to medical school can be challenging at times, it can be uncertain, it can even be stressful at times. So we show these pictures today because we don't want you to forget to take a few minutes along your journey and just remember moments like the white coat ceremony. Okay, remember moments like the white coat ceremony and match day. Remember why you were working so hard. Okay, because I promise it will be worth it and it will be here before we know it. All right, next slide. Okay, so when we talk about Vanderbilt, what are some things that come to mind? Okay. First and foremost, Vanderbilt is a private medical school, and that just means that at this current time, we can accept students from all across the nation and all across the globe. Vanderbilt is innovative, and this really starts with the people that make up the School of Medicine, from our faculty and our students and our leadership. They're very curious people, and they're always thinking, okay, how do we drive not only medicine forward, but how do we drive medical education forward? Okay, Curriculum 2.0. This is our curriculum here, and this to me is our greatest example of innovation. Our curriculum is always evolving, and our faculty and leadership do a tremendous job of adapting to the changing landscape of medicine and updating our curriculum to reflect those changes. So, sort of like your iPhone kind of has version 2.0 and 3.0 and 4.0. Our curriculum, honestly, it could be on curriculum 22.0 because we are constantly making additions and changes to it. Wellness and support. This is the backbone of USM, and this is really who we are at our core, and it's one of our top priorities. Our Dean of Medical Students says, when you come to medical school, you are a whole person, and we want you to be that same whole person when you are going through medical school and when you walk across the stage on graduation. You'll just have a lot more knowledge in your brain. And then last but not least, we are located in Nashville, Tennessee. You can go to the next slide, Gracie. Okay, so I moved to Nashville in early February, and I'm from Ohio, so I'm a Midwest girl through and through. But I have loved my move to Nashville. What I think I love most about it is Nashville has something for everybody. So if you are interested in sports, we have our professional teams, the Tennessee Titans, we have the Preds, Nashville Sounds. If you love being outdoors, we have the Great Smoky Mountains are located just a few hours away, but we also have some incredible lakes and parks right here in our backyard. And then Nashville is a big food scene. If you are a foodie like Gracie and myself, we love to go and explore new places to eat. Nashville is a refugee community, which means there is cuisine that represents cultures from all across the world. So, whatever you are craving on any given day, you can likely find it in Nashville. And then, of course, our staple is our famous Nashville hot chicken, which is very delicious. And then we are Music City. So this is Nashville, Tennessee. So you can get live music just about any night of the week. And we have incredible venues, incredible artists. But I will say it's not just country music. You can find any type of music out there, which is good for the non-country lovers. Okay, next slide. All right, Curriculum 2.0. I briefly mentioned it earlier, but I do want to do just a surface level overview of our curriculum because I think it is one of the strongest things about Vanderbilt. So, the first thing, and I'm just going to go through a few things on this list. Number one, we are competency based assessment and grading. So, we are pass fail during years one and two. And I want you to think about that for a second. So, pass fail during years one and two. If you're thinking about your undergrad experience right now, it's probably competitive. You're pre med, you're probably competing for the best grades, you're probably competing for internship spots and research opportunities. It's a competitive process to get into medical school. By being pass fail during years one and two, we are trying to dismantle that culture of competition and instead foster an environment of collaboration and support and being able to go to your classmates for help. If I'm 11th in the class and Gracie's 10th, and Gracie comes to me, or I go to Gracie and I say, no, excuse me, Gracie comes to me and says, "Hey, I really need those notes from this lecture. I missed it." And I'm thinking, well, I'm 11th in the class and Gracie's 10th, so I'm not going to share my notes. That is absolutely crazy. Becoming the best physicians possible is our priority, and patient care is something we prioritize. So, pass fail during years one and two is really nice for our students to collaborate and lean on each other. Clerkships during year two. So at a lot of medical schools, the traditional setup is 2 years of pre-clerkship. So 2 years in the classroom, and then your clerkship in that clinical phase will begin during year three. Well, here at Vanderbilt, we have 1 year of pre-clerkship, so 1 year in the classroom, and then you'll start your clerkships during year two. And the reasons we find this so beneficial is one, you can kind of get out of the classroom, okay, and start making those connections between textbook. You can start making those connections between what you learn in the classroom to real patients that you are seeing, okay? And also having clerkships in year two, you can start thinking about your specialty sooner. You can start thinking about, okay, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? And you get an extra year to kind of figure that out. Individualized immersion phase. So our immersion phase is during years three and four. Now, years one and two are very much fixed with your schedule. We will tell you what to take. We'll tell you the classes. We'll tell you the clerkships that you take. But year three and year four is really where you get to personalize your medical school journey and start to choose classes and electives that align with your goals of matching into a certain residency. So years one and year two, those are pretty much fixed. But years three and year four, we give you the steering wheel and let you drive the car. All right, and the last one, utilization of varied learning modalities. Um, Essentially, we try to get it below 50% for those traditional lectures in the classroom, and we want to incorporate simulation lab, hands-on patient learning, small group learning, peer learning. So we have all different types of learning modalities, and we really look at the content that we're trying to teach and figure out the best method to do that. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is a snapshot of year one. So our students join us in mid-July for orientation, and they have a Foundations of the Profession course, which just introduces them to med school and introduces them to the profession. And then this is followed by 6 foundational courses over the course of 13 months. So all of our students will take these 6 core courses, ranging from 6 weeks to 12 weeks. As you can see, there's a couple breaks worked in to give you some rest and recharge time. Throughout year one, there's a longitudinal course called the Foundations of Physician Responsibility. And that's here in the bottom right. And that course focuses on the four core elements that we think are essential for every physician. So self, patient, team, and systems. And then there's also an emphasis on healthcare for all and AI. And then on the bottom left, you can kind of see what your week might look like during year one. So in the green, that is our case-based learning. This is the small group. It's kind of the backbone of year one. So you'll be with about 8 to 9 classmates, and you'll be given a couple cases. You'll research those cases Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday and Friday, you'll come back together and talk through a diagnosis and a prognosis. So it very much is student-led and student-driven. There is a faculty member present to kind of keep you on the rails, but you get to learn from each other and you get to do some teaching as well. In the blue, we have our labs, which is your simulation lab, your anatomy lab, histology lab. The foundations of physician responsibility is that beige, which I just mentioned. And then the white, the self directed learning, I think is one of the best parts of year one. We have time protected in our schedule for students to do what they need to do to be successful. Okay, so it's not like we have your 9 to 5 taken from you every day, and okay, now you get home and have to study and have to catch up on things. We carve out that time so you can study, you can get with a classmate, you can talk to a faculty, you can take a long nap if it's needed, you can go for a run if that's what you need to do, but that is your time. Okay, next slide. All right, so year one is complete, 13 months. You grinded in the classroom, and now it is year two, the foundations of clinical care. And this is the clerkships. So, this is why you came to med school to practice medicine. All of our students will take 6 core clerkships. So, we have medicine, pediatrics, psych, neuro, surgery, and OB-GYN. You'll take all of these. They might not necessarily be in this order, but all of our students will take them. Like I said, year one is long. It's 13 months. You're in the classroom. You're tired. We give you a nice break afterwards. And then when you're here for year two, you're ready to hit the ground running. If you are in OB-GYN, you are delivering babies, you are doing it. So this is why you came to med school. And our students, when they get to year two, they're ready to go. Okay. And then you can see on this slide a few electives worked in. This is when you can start thinking, maybe you had the medicine block and you say, oh, I kind of like the idea of being a family doctor. Let me see if I can take an elective to dive deeper into that. All right, next slide. All right, years one and year two are over. You are officially in year three and year four, which is our immersion phase. And this is where you really get to personalize your medical school journey. And this is where I think we kind of stand out from other medical schools because we give you, like I said, we give you the steering wheel, we let you drive, and you are choosing courses that align with your future goals. And as you can see on this slide, we have 2 different students. Maybe they are matching into 2 different things. Their path is going to be different, but they're both going to be Vandy Meds and they're going to match into their residency that they want. All right, next slide. Okay, and I do want to highlight on the colleges here. Our students arrive on campus on day one, they are sorted into one of 4 colleges: Batson, Gabby, Robinson, or Chapman. And if you are thinking Harry Potter sorting hat, it is very much like that. Our students get assigned where they are going, and it is a big party. The colleges accept them with open arms, and that is their college for the next 4 years and beyond. And essentially, it is a family within the bigger VUSM family. So immediately you're introduced to a college, you're introduced to a big, that your big has a big. So it really ties in the tight knit community that we're trying to create. And then of course there's things throughout the year with the colleges that makes it a lot of fun. There's College Cup, which is a spirited competition where all the colleges compete for the College Cup, and it's things like basketball, volleyball, dancing, sonnet writing, pumpkin carving, so a little bit of everything. But I think the colleges is just a really good example of how we prioritize our wellness and support for our students. And there is some trash talking, so it makes it fun. Okay, next slide. Okay, and I love this meme because I secretly want to be a doctor and I just don't have um, It's not who I am. I pass out at the sight of blood, but I am currently watching the show The Pit, and oh my gosh, that show is unreal, and I feel like I could go into an OR. But we just like to show this funny meme. Okay, next slide. All right, the extracurricular edge. Let's talk about it. So, first and foremost, as you start to research medical schools and begin the application process, you will hear the term holistic review a million times. And I promise that holistic review is not just a buzzword that we use, it really is the backbone of our application review process. And holistic review simply means that when we review an application, we're looking at all components of an application when we make a decision. We're not just looking at your statistics. Every medical school has their own mission and sets of core values. And as you start to apply, we encourage you to research the schools you plan to apply to and understand what they value. Here at Vanderbilt, these are some of the things that we value and look for in an application when it comes to extracurriculars. Okay, next slide. Okay, when you think about extracurriculars, academics might not necessarily come to mind, but I did want to briefly talk about it today. We do not have a minimum GPA requirement or a minimum MCAT score requirement here at Vanderbilt. However, our competitive candidates tend to have higher metrics. Strong academic achievement demonstrates to the admissions committee that you can handle a rigorous medical education. Okay, think of it like you're running hurdles at a track meet, and that first hurdle is academic achievement. If you trip over that first hurdle, it's really hard to win that race. So while our discussion today is about extracurriculars, we just want to remind you before you dive into other things and really fill up your plate with extracurriculars, make sure your academic house is in order. Okay? All right, next slide. Okay, research. Research is a pillar of VUSM. We want our students to be big thinkers. We want them to ask tough questions, not only during their time at VCUM, but beyond. VUSM, excuse me. Research experience tells the admissions committee that you are curious and you want to drive medicine forward. And when we're looking at research, we don't have a specific golden number of hours in mind. What matters most is the quality and the impact of your experiences rather than the sheer quantity. For example, 1,000 hours stocking shelves in a lab tells us something different than 500 hours spent managing a lab project, overseeing experimental design, and collecting data. Okay, next slide. Okay, we want leaders at VUSM. Okay, when our students graduate from Vanderbilt, we want them to be leaders in their respective fields and communities, whether they are a family doctor practicing in rural Kentucky, or maybe they're a trauma surgeon in New York City, or maybe you are interested in medical education and you are the future dean of students for a medical school. We want them to be leaders. And we don't necessarily have courses carved out in our curriculum that teach our students how to become a leader. Instead, we are looking for leadership experience within applications. We're looking for students who are strong communicators that have demonstrated an ability to lead others and work well within a team. Okay, next slide. All right, medical exposures. Medical schools place a lot of weight on medical exposures, and when you think about a medical exposure, it can be something like shadowing, clinical volunteering, scribing, EMT work, any of those kind of fall under medical exposures. And the reason it's so important because it helps answer one of our biggest questions, and that is, does this applicant truly understand what a career in medicine involves? Okay, medicine is a long, challenging path, and schools want to know that you've seen the realities of patient care, both the rewarding and the difficult parts, before committing. And exposure shows you're choosing medicine based on experience, not just an abstract idea that you have. And I like to say, avoid the Elle Woods effect. And if you know Elle Woods from Legally Blonde, it's one of my favorite movies. I love it. I love her. But we want you to avoid the Elle Woods effect when it comes to your application. When we're going through an application, what we don't want to say as a committee is, I think they woke up this morning and decided they want to go to medical school. We should see clear evidence over a long period of time that you have really thought about a career in medicine. And then medical exposure gives you experiences to reflect on in essays and interviews. So it helps in that regard as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, last but certainly not least, community engagement. We prefer to say community engagement rather than community service because I think community service sounds like you got in trouble and it's something you have to do as part of your punishment. So we like to say community engagement. And often applicants want to become physicians to help and serve others, which is fantastic. Medicine is a service-oriented profession. The admissions committee looks for clear evidence of service in your application to understand your commitment to helping people and connect those dots between those two things. All right, next slide. Okay, we love to show this graphic when we're talking to pre-medical students. And on the left, we have a nice, well-rounded hill. All of our students, most of our applicants are well-rounded. You've probably been told since you were, oh my goodness, probably in first grade that you need to be well-rounded and play sports and play music and speak different languages and just be overall well-rounded, which is great. We love well-rounded individuals. But we're also looking for the peaks of an application. What are those points of your application that really stick out and really grab the attention of the admissions committee? Okay. And then when we put all of those peaks together, all 96, which is our class size, then we get that well rounded class. Okay. All right. Perfect. Next slide. Okay. So you are now at the point where you are ready to apply to medical school. In your AMCAS application, there is a section called Work and Activities. In this section, you will showcase the experiences that have shaped your character and illustrate how you have prepared yourself for a medical career. You can list up to 15 distinct experiences, with each entry limited to 700 characters. Okay, so this restriction really requires an applicant to be concise and deliberate with your language. Additionally, you can designate 3 of your experiences as most meaningful. For these entries, the limit is expanded to 1,325, giving you more room to provide just a deeper reflection on the impact of these experiences. This expanded space is ideal for explaining what you did and how those experiences have shaped your aspirations for a career in medicine. Okay, and if you're reading this and you're thinking, 15 experiences, how will I ever narrow it down to 15? Focus on the 4 areas that we mentioned and aim for a balanced mix. Okay. On the other hand, if your reaction is, how am I ever going to come up with 15 activities? Use this as a chance to identify gaps and consider exploring new opportunities to strengthen your experiences. All right, next slide. Okay, when it comes to selecting your 3 most meaningful experiences, the goal isn't just to pick the longest or the most impressive activities on your list. It's about choosing the ones that tell your story the best. Okay, so first and foremost, reflect on your experiences. When you're doing your application, write out all of the experiences and activities that you've done, and think about what really stands out when you look back on your journey. Second, ask yourself which experiences had the biggest impact on you. This could be something that shaped your character, challenged you, or perhaps gave you new skills. Third, consider which experiences changed your perspective. Admissions committee are interested in how you grew. Maybe you gained a new understanding of patients, teamwork, or maybe the challenges of healthcare. I like this example because I think it demonstrates that you don't it doesn't have to be a wow aha activity. For example, an applicant, they were an engineering major and their engineering project was in a hospital and they were trying to identify how to make a hospital more efficient. And they were there during their internship and all of a sudden they're exposed to the medical field. They're seeing physicians run around, they're seeing nurses and the healthcare team work with patients. And this applicant said, I actually don't want to do engineering. I want to be a physician. That is absolutely a most meaningful moment. And then finally, think about which experience contributed to your decision to pursue medicine. The most meaningful activities often connect directly to why you want to be a physician and what kind of physician you hope to be. So, as you're narrowing down your list for your most meaningful, focus less on what sounds impressive and more on what was truly transformative for you. Okay? They don't all need to be medical experiences, but be sure at least one experience of your most meaningful is related to medicine. For example, I played basketball in college, and while it's not directly related to medicine, I it is without a doubt one of my most meaningful experiences. And no, you don't necessarily have to force a connection. Like, I wouldn't say, oh, yeah, I played basketball to improve my hand eye coordination, to become a surgeon. That is a bit of a reach. But instead, you can highlight the real takeaways. So, for me, example, playing taught leadership, time management, discipline, and how to work well on a team. All transferable skills for a career as a physician. Okay, next slide. Okay, now let's walk through a few examples. And some of these are just okay. And then we have others that really stand out as great. Okay. And we'll just kind of walk through these. So this is an example of one of your 15 entries that might not necessarily be your most meaningful. So this is one where you have 700 characters to work with. So in this example, shadowed Dr. Smith in the cardiology clinic, observed patient visits, stress tests, and catheterizations, learned about treatment options for patients with heart disease. Okay, good. Okay, not great. Now let's look at the next example. Okay, shadowed Dr. Smith in cardiology, observing patient consultations and procedures such as stress tests and catheterizations. Beyond learning medical content, I saw how Dr. Smith built trust by explaining complex decisions in understandable terms. This experience deepened my appreciation for the physician's role in guiding patients through uncertainty and confirmed my interest in patient centered care. Okay, do you see the difference between the two examples? Both examples tell us what this applicant did, but the second example provides more details and shares how that experience has impacted their journey in medicine. Okay, so be very wise with how you are using your 700 characters. Okay, all right, we can go to the next slide. Okay, and the next two examples reflect an experience that might be your most meaningful. So, with your most meaningful, you get those additional characters. We get to go up to 1,325. Okay, and in this example, they are talking about volunteering at a food bank. So, I volunteered at a food bank once a month. I helped organize food donations and distribute them to those in need. This experience taught me about poverty and making a difference in people's lives. I learned teamwork from the staff and felt good about helping others. Okay, it tells us what they did, but again, you're leaving a lot of room for the admissions committee to interpret, and you're leaving a lot of characters on the floor. All right, next slide. All right, we give you the, or I shouldn't say we, AMCAS gives you those characters for a reason. Use them. So in this example, still working at a food bank. During my 2 years as a volunteer coordinator at the local food bank, I managed a team of 15 volunteers, organized food drives, and improved our logistics system to increase efficiency. One memorable project involved collaborating with local businesses to provide over 1,000 meals during the holidays. This experience challenged me to develop leadership skills and taught me the importance of compassion in addressing food insecurity. It deepened my understanding of community health issues and reinforced my commitment to pursuing a career in medicine. Witnessing the gratitude of families receiving meals was profoundly motivating, as it highlighted the significant impact that organized, compassionate service can have on public health. Much different, much more detailed. And what you notice in this example is they quantify. So they're using numbers to add more context and more thought to this experience. So they managed a team of 15 volunteers. They didn't just manage a team, they managed 15 volunteers. This helps tell the admissions committee, okay, they're overseeing a big team. This is leadership. And then you also see we provided over 1,000 meals. Again, it gives more context to the admissions committee and really lets them know what this experience was about. Okay, next slide. Okay. So now, you might be wondering, outside of the AMCAS activity section, where else can I highlight the experience that have shaped me? Okay. The first one is the personal statement. This is where you connect the dots of your journey. Instead of listing, you're really telling your story. And you're showing how your experiences shaped your motivation for medicine and your value as a future physician. And it's 100% okay for you to have some overlap between your activities and your personal statement. So, especially if something was the most meaningful and it's in that top three, it can 100% also be mentioned in the personal statement. And it's kind of nice to kind of come full circle and connect those for the admissions committee. Okay, the second place is secondary applications. Schools often ask targeted questions here, like your commitment to service, working with others, or leadership. And this is your chance to pull in specific activities that align with each school's mission and emphasizes what makes you a strong fit. For example, here at Vanderbilt, one of our secondary questions is tell us about a time that you had to ask for help. Okay, every medical student is going to have to ask for help at one point or another, and that's a question that we ask in our secondary. So that's a great opportunity to bring those activities back in and say, oh, while I was a member of this research lab, I had to ask for help for these reasons, and this is what I learned from it, and this is how I'm going to take this with me moving forward. And then the last place is interview day. So everything you wrote in your application is fair game in an interview. Okay. So think of this as your opportunity to expand beyond the character counts and bring your activities to life with personal stories and experiences from your activities. Okay. So remember the activities section, it's just a starting point. You'll have multiple opportunities throughout the application process to really showcase your activities and share more about what you've done and who you are. Um, okay, next slide. All right. All right, let's talk about some tips and tricks about extracurriculars in the activities section. Okay. Number one, start keeping a record now. And I don't know exactly what year we are all in at Central Florida, but start keeping a record. Don't rely on memory later. Track your hours, track your roles and responsibilities. And then when you do start to fill out your AMCAS application, you're going to be able to go through that and say, oh, this is what I did. This is who I worked with. This is how many hours I completed. So I really encourage you to start keeping a record now. Okay. Number two, highlight skills gained. Excuse me, if my email just went off. Highlight skills gained, challenges, or impact. So instead of just describing what you did, focus on what you learned and how you grew. That's really what committees want to see. So if one of your activities is shadowing, we can probably think to ourselves, okay, yes, they shadowed a physician and they probably saw procedures, but what did you learn from that? How did you grow from that? And how did it contribute to your career in medicine? Okay, third, be detailed but not too extra. Okay, we want details, we want those quantifying numbers and things like that. But when I say don't be too extra, this isn't necessarily the place to throw in medical jargon or complicated terms. We've seen some applications where they really go into detail about the procedures that they saw, which I have a weak stomach, so I would be on the floor if I read that one. But we want you to be detailed, but not too extra in these entries. Okay, quantify your involvement when possible. And I mentioned that earlier, but numbers really help. They really help paint a picture, whether that's total hours or total number of patients you've interacted with or people you've mentored. It really gives credibility and context for the admissions committee. All right. Write like you are telling a mini story. Okay, what we don't want to see is essentially your CV or your resume copy and pasted in the activities section. So it really shouldn't read like a bullet point list. We want you to share not just tasks, but also the moment, the reflection, and lesson. And it just makes your entries more memorable and just a little bit more human. Okay, and then I can't stress this last tip enough. Be prepared to talk about your activities in an interview. Anything you include on your application is fair game for follow up questions. Okay, we have had applicants put activities on their application, maybe it's research or something like that, and then they are asked about it in an interview, and it is very apparent to the interviewer when it is not something that necessarily was meaningful to them, or there wasn't clear passion with it, or maybe they just put it on because they were trying to check a box. Make sure that the activities that you are listing on your application are things that you can talk about in your or in your interview, and throughout your application process, and still radiate that passion for medicine. Okay, next slide. Okay, let's myth bust. We love myth busting here at the USM. Okay, myth one, you need thousands of hours in every activity. Okay, it's easy to get caught up in counting hours, and I know I said to quantify when possible, but medical schools really care more about the quality of your involvement rather than the quantity. Okay, so it's a little bit different when you're talking about experience. By all means, quantify. I worked with X amount of patients. I served X amount of meals for my food, working at the food bank. That's a great time. But when you're thinking about the overall total count hours for the experience, we really care about the quality of your involvement rather than the quantity. So deep, meaningful engagement is much more impactful than just logging hours. Okay. Myth number two, all extracurriculars need to be related to medicine. You don't have to limit yourself to healthcare related activities. Schools want to see well rounded applicants with diverse experiences. Anything that demonstrates curiosity, anything that demonstrates perseverance or leadership can be extremely valuable. And in AMCAS, I think there's about 18 categories you can choose from. There's hobbies, there's artistic endeavors, there's social justice work. Maybe they aren't related to medicine, and that's okay. They can be extremely valuable. All right, myth number three, the more activities, the better. Okay, so filling your resume with every activity you've ever done might not necessarily impress an admissions committee. Focus on a few experiences where you made a real impact and really reflect thoughtfully on what you learned. Okay, so if you are going through your application and you're filling out the 15 just to fill them out, we honestly would rather probably see 10 to 12 where you did really meaningful work as opposed to all 15 where maybe you just showed up once or twice and didn't really have a whole lot of impact. All right, myth four, short term or one time activities don't matter. Even brief experiences can be meaningful, especially if they taught you something important or allowed you to contribute in a unique way, or maybe they really impacted your journey to become a physician. So don't discount them just because they were short term. I mentioned that earlier, the engineer who had his internship at the hospital, probably a short internship, but it completely changed the trajectory of his career. Okay, myth five. There is a perfect extracurricular formula. There isn't a one size fits all recipe. Okay, I think we get that question more than anything. What is the magic formula? How many hours do you look for in each of those areas? Admissions committees are looking for authenticity and depth, not necessarily a checklist of specific activities. Your unique combination of experiences is what really matters. And then myth number six, leadership means holding a title. And when you think about leadership experience, you might think, okay, I need to be the president of a sorority or a fraternity or the president of a club or something like that. Leadership could be I was in a class and I led a study group every Wednesday night for my peers. That is 100% leadership. And we love to see those examples as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, and the last thing I just want to mention, I really like this picture because I think everybody can relate to it and it can apply to anybody no matter where they are at on their journey. Applying to medical school, I mean, being in pre-med is hard. Being a pre-med student is challenging. And the journey to medical school is challenging, it's uncertain, it can be stressful. And remember, if your plan or your journey isn't linear, that is okay. Gracie mentioned how she was a sports communication major and she wanted to work in sports, and now she's working in healthcare. She probably didn't anticipate it, and she thought her journey was going to be linear to the sports world. and things pop up, and the reality is we don't know what's gonna come next, and just take it and understand that it's a part of your journey and it's a part of your final destination to get to medical school. And with that, I would love to open it up for questions.
All right, we had a question about if the exams are NBME based or in-house.
NBME based, yes. Yep, we use their services to do the exams.
I'm not seeing another question, but maybe you could give us, maybe the students, an idea of what kinds of extracurriculars tend to look great on applications. Or actually, we have a question from Varden.
Hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hello. I wanted to ask, in terms of the curriculum and kind of like the extracurriculars for like maybe combined tracks, like let's say an MD, PhD, or like an
Hmm.
MS, MD, or any combined degree programs that are offered by Vanderbilt, how would kind of the curriculum and therefore the extracurricular expectations kind of change in that aspect?
Hmm. Yeah, sure. So, for our dual programs, specifically our MD PhD program, the what we look for in an applicant is very similar to the PhD program. So we're looking for the leadership, we're looking for the medical exposures. The Probably the biggest difference between us and the PhD program, they are looking for a lot more research experience, and they're looking for authorship, they're looking for publications, things like that, to really demonstrate that interest in scientific inquiry and for a career in research. But when it comes to looking at candidates, we really do look at similar things, but the biggest difference is that research.
And when it comes to like applications, what is one kind of type of application that you kind of remember that was stood out to you particularly?
Hmm. Sure. Like I said, I think we'll get this question where it's like, what does the applicant to Vandy look like, or what does the traditional matriculated student look like at Vandy? And everybody's path is different, everybody's background experience is different, and we absolutely love that. We're looking for students that love to collaborate, love to be engaged, and love to be a part of a team. Having said that, there are things in applications where things will stick out, kind of like those mountain peaks, and we say, "Ooh, I really want to meet this individual." For example, we had an applicant. He's now matriculated. He's an M3, and he was an anatomy teacher in high school. And we love the peer learning. We love our students teaching. We said, "Oh, this could be a really great contribution to the class because he loves to teach and he has that experience." And he did a really good job of explaining how that experience would translate to a career in medicine. And of course, he had the medical exposures and the research and things like that. But that's one example where one of those peaks really stood out. We said, "Oh, I really want to meet this individual."
Okay, thank you so much.
Hmm.
We also had a question. What is one application you remember that stood out to you? And yeah, and they said thank you as well.
Yeah. I've probably the student who was the teacher, or any experiences like that um, are just a little bit different. They really stick out. The teacher is a great example because, maybe a non-traditional, put that in quotes, path to medical school, but we love a non-traditional route. In fact, we're probably seeing it more and more. So if you finish undergrad and you think, I want to take a year or two to do something else and to do something that I'm really passionate about, or travel or something like that, that is absolutely okay. We love a non-traditional path to medical school. Just be ready to explain that in the application process and in your interview.
And then we also had a question, does being a substitute teacher count as leadership?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the times, like I said, if you don't have a traditional title per se, that's okay. Sometimes it's all about how you frame it on your application. So if I'm a substitute teacher, quantify that. You were managing X amount of students, you were overseeing lesson plans, you were collaborating with fellow coworkers, things like that. So sometimes it also is how you frame things in your application. And definitely don't undermine any type of experience that you had where you did have leadership qualities come through.
And then a student who was not a big fan of research was asking if their application showed that that part of was lacking hours compared to the rest of their application, would that
Mhm.
make them less well-rounded compared to somebody that does have those research hours?
Mhm. Not necessarily. Like I said, we don't have a magic formula. We are looking for research, and sometimes it does come down to the quality of the experience rather than the quantity. If your passions lie in community engagement or in medical exposures, we will certainly see that in an application. With Vanderbilt, we probably like to see research a little bit more because it's interwoven into our curriculum throughout the 4 years, and we really like those individuals that think big, ask those questions, and want to drive medicine forward. But in terms of hours and things like that, no perfect formula. If something is a little lower on one end, you can absolutely look at, okay, should I add more hours? Or maybe your other areas are super stellar and you're able to confidently speak about those and passionately talk about those in your application.
Thank you. And then if someone is post back or they're an SMP prior to applying, how would that affect the application?
Yeah, sorry, could you repeat that? My thing cut out.
Oh, you're fine. Somebody was asking if they are post back or SMP prior to applying, how would that affect their application?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't think it necessarily affects the application process. Like I said, we there's individuals that come to Vanderbilt straight out of undergrad, which is great. Our students that do that find success, and then we have students that think about, I want to do post-bac to maybe get more exposure to the science courses or whatever you're doing a post-bac for. And that is perfectly okay too. If you are doing a post-bac, what we usually look for is you're doing that academic work, but what are some other areas where you're also engaging in medicine during that process, whether it's volunteer work, community engagement, maybe you're working a medical job like scribing or EMT work. But we've absolutely had students do the post-bac route. We're just looking for a little bit of balance during those years as well.
And then could you also talk a little bit more about the MD to MPH program?
Yes, is this MD PhD? Is that correct?
MD, and then I think Masters of Public Health is what the students
Oh,
have.
sure. Okay. Yes. So the Master of Public Health, I actually have that pulled up right now. It is one of the dual degrees offered here at Vanderbilt, and a lot of our students will, not a lot, a handful will partake in this, but they'll essentially do 3 years of MD work, and then after that third year, they'll do their Master of Public Health. And within the public Master of Public Health, you can kind of choose your track. And there's epidemiology and clinical research. You can do a global health track, or you can do a health policy track. And then once you complete your Master of Public Health, you'll rejoin the MD curriculum for one of your immersion. You'll start the immersion phase process. So, oftentimes with dual degrees, for a traditional student, an MD would take 4 and the master takes 2. We try and get it all combined into 5.
And then we also had another question. What is the average amount of hours you recommend for any kind of activity?
That's a great question. And I wish I had an average number to say. But unfortunately, I don't because it varies applicant to applicant. And where one applicant is, might be low on research hours or medical exposures, maybe they were a varsity athlete for a Division I team like UCF, and a lot of their time was committed to that sport. So we don't necessarily have that perfect number or an average number. And I know it sounds cliche and I've said it a lot, but we really are looking for quality over quantity.
Thank you. And then would having a minor in healthcare administration with a major in biomedical sciences give an edge to the application?
That's a great question. I think when we're looking at academic achievement, I don't want to say that it will give an edge and we'll look at that candidate more because they have a minor or a major in biology. But we are looking at academic achievement and not only a statistic. So if that's your route, yes, we're looking at GPA and things like that, but we're also looking at the quality of courses that you took. We're looking at any trends in your academic history. So maybe you joined freshman year and you was like, maybe it was COVID and you're trying to figure your life out and you didn't necessarily have a strong GPA during freshman year, but you went on a good upward trend. We're also looking at that as well. But when it comes to majors and minors, we don't necessarily have one that necessarily edges out another. Traditionally, our students are science majors just because they're studying what they're passionate about. But we've had students be music majors, we've had English, we've had political science, we've had business and economics. What we're really looking for with academic history and academic achievement is, of course, the strength and the grades that come with it, but just also the quality of the courses and what your journey looked like with your education.
Thank you. And I think that kind of ties into the next question, which was for someone who has double majored in biomedical sciences
Mhm.
and then did another major that followed their passions, would that stand out to admissions committees or do admissions prefer having a singular degree?
Mm-hmm. No, we love to see applicants follow their passion, and I think it kind of comes back to us not necessarily requiring a science major. In fact, we don't even require prerequisites; they are all recommendations because we want our students to major in what they are passionate about. And for some of our students, that was political science or music or English, like I mentioned. But we want you to study what you're passionate in because it's your college experience and we want it to be optimal for you. But certainly the double major or the science major really demonstrates to an admissions committee that you've really thought about this, you've been exposed to the science courses, and you can handle a rigorous medical education.
And then would volunteering at a food bank, if a person didn't hold a leadership title, still be a significant thing to add?
Hmm. Yes, definitely. I think with your experiences as you're thinking about them for the AMCAS application, don't write anything off. Really take the time to lay out everything that you did and think about like, okay, if you're thinking about food bank and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I passed out food for X amount of time. I don't really know if absolutely think about all the traits that you've probably gained from that or experiences that you've learned or the different populations of people that you've worked with. So really try to dig deeper into those experiences and think, how do I take that to the next level and add it to my application, and really demonstrate to the committee that I love helping others and I love serving others.
Thank you. And then are there any common mistakes you see applicants make in interviews or
Mm.
applications that you wish students were more aware of?
Mm-hmm. Great question. This is one of my favorite questions. We are currently in our interview season, and here at Vanderbilt, our probably our biggest thing that we prioritize is collaboration and engagement. Our students, it's certainly not the program that students come to and they put their hood on and have their headphones in and kind of can just sit in the back of a lecture hall for 4 years. If you come to Vanderbilt, the administration will know you. They'll text you. They'll just really get to know you on a personal level. And we look for students that are engaged. So that's something that we value, and it translates to our interview day. And our interview days, they're virtual, but we're really looking for applicants that are engaged throughout the day. So are they asking good questions? Are they getting along well with the other interviewees? That's something that we value. We've seen individuals join and their cameras off. They're not really engaged. They're not speaking to other applicants, and we're just like, I don't know if they would translate or if they would be successful in our program. They might absolutely be successful somewhere else, but like I said, we really look for those engaged individuals. And then, oh, and then what was the second part of that question?
They were asking, were there any mistakes that you've seen students make in interviews that you wish students were more aware of?
Hmm. Perfect. And then I think for applications specifically, letters of recommendation are, and I know we're talking about extracurriculars today, but it kind of translates to, it kind of connects to letters of evaluation. When we read a letter of evaluation, we want a letter that is written by an individual that really knows you well and can speak to you and can speak to your qualities and your traits very well You'd be surprised how many letters we get that's like, Maggie was in my class. Maggie was in my class for a semester. And that's basically what we get from the letter, as opposed to Maggie came to office hours, Maggie asked questions, Maggie led tutoring, one night a week. So with an application, I think that's some of the biggest mistakes we see is students expect these letters of evaluation from individuals that don't know them too well. So really get to know those people in your corner that will eventually write those letters.
Thank you. And then does the school offer any resources to help with figuring out what specialty to follow?
Yes, absolutely. So all of our students will have access to specialty advisors, and specialty advisors, their job, their priority is to connect you with more opportunities in the specialty that you're interested in. For example, if I'm thinking anesthesia is for me, I'll get together with my specialty advisor. Maybe they're an anesthesiologist. If not, they're going to connect me with somebody who is that can tell me more about the profession. We also have specialty speed dating, which I think is really fun and really cool idea. Essentially, it's exactly what it sounds like. Our students go to speed dating for specialties, and they get to learn about every specialty that is offered at VUSM, which is really neat. And then the other thing I think is just the electives and the courses that our students have the control over to take. So if I'm in my year 3 and I'm thinking pediatrics. I'm going to work with my faculty advisor and my specialty advisor to identify courses that align with that goal of matching into pediatrics. So I think there's a lot of resources in place to kind of help our students figure out their path.
Thank you. And then a student wanted to clarify with the activities that they do, should they quantify the impact that they've made doing them? And then do they put this description in or in the activities, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. Quantify whenever possible, especially if you can quantify the impact. I think that is outstanding. And then for the description, it's um, kind of a balance here because you want to explain what you were doing, but you don't want to use the entire time to explain what you did. Use that time to briefly explain, like I worked in a research lab and this was our goals, or this is what my specific role was. But then go into talking about any major impacts that you had, or any major impacts that it had on you, and kind of how that experience prepares you for a career in medicine.
Thank you. And then does the school have dedicated time to study for the step one?
Yes, our students will actually have 8 weeks during year 3 that is protected time to study for the step 1 and step 2 exam. So, protected time, you don't have to do clinic, you don't have to do research. It is just time for you to study. And I don't have official numbers on our pass rate or anything like that, but it's very high and very strong. And I think a big part of that is that time that we give our students.
And then if our extracurriculars show a strong interest in one field or area, does it look better to do more research in that field or area?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, Not necessarily. I don't think you necessarily have to stick to your one passion project throughout your entire application. Of course, if that is your passion, absolutely, it might come through as kind of like a theme, if that makes sense. For example, if I know I want to work with kids or something like that, and your volunteering is with kids and your research is dedicated to pediatric care, you might naturally have a theme and something that's focused on one area. But I don't necessarily think that's bad or necessarily good. I think it just shows that you are very passionate about one item, and you can definitely speak to it when it comes to your personal statement and in your interview and secondary questions as well.
Well, thank you so much, Maggie. We really appreciate you and Gracie coming out. Um, and yeah, if you had an email or anything that the students can contact, if you could drop it in the chat. Um,
Yes, I'm going to drop. So, MD Admissions is where you can find me. And then MD Ambassadors is where you can find current students. And they love talking with prospective students. So, email anytime, but I will drop those in the chat now.
thank
And
you. And then we had one more question, which was what types of research have higher quality on applications if you get a chance?
not necessarily any specific topics or any specific labs or research areas. Um, Really, and I know I've said it a lot, but it is that quality over quantity. What you are doing in that lab compared to if you are just, sweeping up the floors at the end of the day or stocking shelves, what you do in that lab or what you do on that research project tells us more as a committee than the topic or the area.
Thank you. And then students, I dropped the end of survey chat survey into the chat if you could fill that out if you get a chance. And thank you again, Maggie. Really appreciate it.
Yes, of course. We host info sessions as well, so those are on our website, and you'll email MD Admissions if you want any info on that. But yeah, please feel free to reach out anytime with questions.